intellect.
Hey, 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 what's up, Chicago and nationwide USA? We are on tonight. It is Intellectual Radio Frontline with your hosts, Tyrone Mohammed and Kata Trust. And tonight we have back with us a gentleman who really intrigued me last week. And I am so honored to have him back in the studio because let me tell you something. This brother dropped some gems on us. And I say us because anytime I am able to sit in a room with anyone and knowledge is going forth, and I mean things that I am not aware of, it is a very good day, a very good time. So I want to welcome back, introduce to some, and remind others of my brother, Mr. Phillip Bradley. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and you're so sweet. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
So, what's the agenda for tonight?
Well, in Mr. Tyrone's absence, we gonna free flow.
Okay.
We gonna free flow.
Okay.
The biggest thing that I saw today that I wanted to talk about was the fact that the Democratic Party lost over 300,000 voters in this last election. And that's a big deal. And one of the reasons it's a big deal, and to some people to think about voters, to think about the numbers, and you think about this country, America, and the number of people who reside in it, perhaps to some that may not seem like a large number, but to those of us who participate in elections, who have worked elections, and who take elections serious, we know that that is a very vast number, considering also the number of voters who don't show up at all, or the number of Americans
Sure.
who don't show up to vote at all. So, looking at those numbers, I found that to be astounding. And what I find to be even more astounding is the fact that the Democratic Party just seems to refuse to want to deal with why they really lost
Mhm.
and what has to happen in order to make a change. Now, again, not that I give two rats behinds because I'm going to go how I go. I am no longer married to party.
Mhm.
So I'm going to vote my conscience. And if you don't reside with my conscience, then I can't vote for you. I also noticed that, our mayor, and I talked a little bit about this last week, has been on this tour to redeem himself. And that's what I'm going to call it, a redemption tour with Black Chicago. And, one of the things that has troubled me really over the last couple of weeks is even though I have been very, very despondent with our Black elected officials, to the point where I dropped my cross and decided to go over to the Republican side. But one of the things that has been troubling to me is the number of times that I've had to come out and to speak about the disrespect, about the lack of empathy for their own people, about the fact that you will allow yourself to be used and monopolized by other ethnic groups and leave your ethnic group behind. So I have some issue with that. But it bothers me that I've had to be so negative and combative with my Black elected officials. That's troubling to me. Because I, am a component and a believer in unity, in collaboration, and in our people working together. And when I look at our current state of elected officials, it's very hard to see how something like that happens with this group of individuals. And so I say that to say that I'm going to try to be intentional about not going so hard, but finding a way to let them know that we are not happy with them without disparaging them, if you will.
Mm, mm. Well, I appreciate your narrative because you may be the litmus test of how did 300,000 leave. Use you for the example. What are your issues? And they probably have the same issues that you do. But what we have to remember is that the Democratic machine or the Democratic Party have never been built around the advancement of African American people. That's not part of the logo or mantra. We just come along for the ride. They use us as political tools and pawns, but we are not a plank or an agenda item that they ever discuss openly or honestly.
Absolutely.
And so, but then you have to say, well, what's wrong with us? Why what we don't see? What part we don't understand? What part are we listening to? And so they, since we don't hear us as an agenda item, but still participate, why would they not abuse us and use us to the end since we cooperate? And that's the thing. See, there could be a conspiracy against you. The problem is, why are you collaborating with the conspiracy? And so we have to stop being collaborators to our own demise. Shame on us. Yes, they doing foolishness, but you cannot participate. And so we have to grow up. Uh,
Yes.
and that's the thing. And so politically, we're not mature, and intellectually, we're not on our game. And so we've been used from those two ends. But we have to be mindful that the Democratic Party was never for the advancement of African American people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so true. And we speak about that often, and you see it. It's
It's
evident
evident.
in what we're seeing, and even and having conversations and listening to CNN earlier today, listening to broadcasts time and time again. Everybody is still really talking about DEI. I think that is the litmus test that the Democratic Party has chosen to use as their issue, if you will. I think that for the Republican Party, they were able to use in the last election season, they were able to use immigration, the migrant crisis, the economy, and things like that in order to really push the envelope to get Mr. President Trump where he is today. However, Democratic Party, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work because, and people listen to me, and I'm not only talking to Democrats, but I'm really talking primarily to Black people. Y'all hear me? DEI was not working for us. DEI has not worked for us anymore. And some of y'all gonna have a problem with this, but y'all know I don't care, right? It didn't work any more for us than the civil rights movement did. And let me tell you why I say that. Don't you all realize that, yes, the civil rights movement was prolific, it was big, and it was a catalyst for change. But it wasn't just a catalyst for change for Black people. I think that people forget that on the heels of the civil rights movement was also the women's rights movement, which was really used as a way for white women to push themselves and their agenda to the front line. And so they were very prolific and involved in the civil rights movement, but not for the benefit of Black people.
Yep.
It was for the benefit of themselves. And so the same way that DEI has benefited that group, so did the civil rights movement. I say all this to say that, people, because you talked, Mr. Phillip, about how sometimes we're ignorant to how things go and why things are the way that
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah. But just to back up what you're saying, however, just a slight correction. The suffrage movement, which was the women's right to vote
Yes.
movement happened in 1930, which means we live in a country that white women was not looked at as an equal within the context of a white community getting the right to vote until the 30s. We didn't get the right to vote as African American people as a country until 1965.
Right.
Now, as a result of our movement, because you're right, the women's suffrage movement did not include African American women. And that's why it was a half-baked movement, because they
Yes.
didn't say all women. They just was advocating for white
White
women.
women. Yes.
They did not include all women. And that's why we still have sexism throughout the world, because even the most privileged person called white people did not advocate for all women. And that's what, so they still have, and
Exactly.
so they still have this duplicity of fighting for equal pay, because they still didn't know how to advocate for themselves
Exactly.
correctly.
Yes.
Now, the civil rights movement actually opened the door for all people,
Exactly.
because the Constitution is real. It says you cannot be put at an advantage or put at a disadvantage due to your race. So right now, white people are actually breaking the law because they put themselves at an advantage due to their race. They put other people at a
Advantage
disadvantage
because of
due
their
to their
race.
race. They say you cannot be put at an advantage, be put at a disadvantage due to your religion, due to your class or gender. And they have taken people who have different genders, who have put them at an advantage, and they're taking people based upon their gender and put them at a disadvantage. And you cannot be put at an advantage or a disadvantage. Now, when you don't respect the Constitution, then you have to come up with all these derivatives of corrections versus obey the law.
Right.
Just
Just obey it.
just
Right.
obey the law. You don't have to come up with an alternative.
No, it doesn't take an
You
addendum.
don't need an addendum. Just don't put no one at an advantage and don't put nobody at a disadvantage due to their race. And we live under the false pretense that, and the fact that we go along with we at a disadvantage due to our race. Well, they breaking the law. They at an advantage due to their race. They breaking the law. Now, how do we amend the fact of people breaking this law?
Exactly.
It's not that you come up with a remedy of band-aid. No, just start applying the law. But what we have seen is that white privilege do not want to be challenged.
Not at all.
And until we challenge this myth within the reality of social dynamics, you can't have social justice, because it's almost like trying how you live up to a lie that don't exist.
That is right. A story that's only been told to you.
Right. And so this is where what even Brother Tyrone is dealing with, this whole incarceration thing. I was on the phone talking with him today, and I asked him, I said, Tyrone, do you know the reason why prisons was built? And so he paused and he answered it correctly. For white people. Because at the time of prison being built in America, blacks was enslaved. So they didn't put
We didn't need. They didn't need them for us.
They didn't need it for us. They needed for whites who was corrupt toward other whites. Because a white person could violate black people back then. They didn't have to go to jail for that.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go to court for that. They only made jails for whites who violated other whites.
Other whites.
And they still do to this day. That hasn't changed. It took a long time to get a white policeman to go to jail for killing a citizen. Okay, that's new. That's a new dynamic. But so the whole penitentiary system is they put us in it to continue slavery.
Yes.
They could not make the mental adjustment to say we are free.
The new Jim Crow.
So that's our new enslavement.
Yes.
Because they didn't agree to free us in the first place. They still can't make that mental adjustment.
I was gonna say they still have not made that adjustment, but now it was just prison. Prison was just another mechanism for not just controlling and enslaving, but also controlling the minds of black people. And so now we're seeing and if you look at our kids, and I always talk about being in schools and being in different schools because I'm a substitute teacher. So I travel throughout the city and Chicagoland area. And one of the things that you're beginning to see in our children is you're beginning to see the effects of the food that we eat. You see the effects in terms of our minds, in terms of us being sluggish, in terms of us not being able to comprehend, in terms of our children not being able to grasp. We see it in the weight and the healthiness or lack thereof of our people. And so there are so many mechanisms right now that are put in place to keep us down, a lot of which we are not even privy to. And so that's why when we have the opportunity to get with a Phillip Bradley, to have you to come in, and even like I said, I think I made a statement earlier and you were able to correct me. And once you make the correction, I was like, yep, that's right. But we have to be able to have that dialogue,
Hmm.
to have the conversation, to have the historians, the people who know the history, the people who've lived the history,
Right.
the people who understand where the changes need to be, people who understand where we fail, where we've fallen short,
Yeah.
and what we need to do in order to pick ourselves up. And so I want to have you to begin to talk more about that, because I'm telling you, talking with you last week about the mindset of the black man, of the black woman, of the black child, and how we feel about each other, and the spirit of offense,
Mm.
and the violence that we perpetuate
Sure.
against each other, and why it is, and what we need to do to change and to fix this. And let me say to my parents before Mr. Bradley gets started, if you have young people and you're listening, go get them. Go get them. Because, see, it's time out for us to not allow our kids to hear the truth about what has happened and what is happening to them. So, parents, if you're listening, go get your kids and make them sit down and hear this.
It's interesting you brought up the diet question, which is so important to our ability to think and function and thrive uh, and survive. Correct diet. But one of the phenomenons that we've been that's been put up on our relationships and community is we do unnatural stuff and act like it's natural. Um, One of the things that helps with bonding and building brain cells is breast milk. And what we didn't do as a culture is actually breastfeed our children.
Mm-hmm.
We gave them Similac. Now, if you say the name Similac, it says what it says. It's similar, but it lacks. And
Come on
it
now.
says it on the can.
Come on.
It's similar, but
But it
it
lacks.
lacks all the nutrients for brain cells. It lacks all the enzymes for immune system. It tells you this. And but it's also when you breastfeed, you are bonding with your child and you giving brain cells. So what we see is a community of people now who don't know how to bond, and it looks like they lacking brain cells.
That ain't what it looks like, sir. That's what it
I'm saying,
is.
where's the bonding
Because of those things
and
that
the
we missed.
and the brain cells? And so that's a development step that many people have missed in their development. And so we have gone from Similac to Big Macs. We didn't go from Similac to water to juice to fruit to vegetables. We went from Similac to Big Mac to purple sugar drinks.
You know what is interesting that you should say that about the breast milk? Because I remember my grandmother saying this to me as a kid, and I didn't understand it until really just now. And I remember her saying to me down in Mississippi that she would nurse for the people that she worked for.
Correct.
And
That's correct.
I remember hearing her say that. But are y'all listening to this? Y'all think about this. Y'all got grandmothers and great grandmothers who nursed from their breast white children, privileged white children. Think about this. If we were really that bad, if we were really people who were not of the
Right.
caliber to provide, Can you imagine? The
No,
realization
sure,
of that
sure,
has
sure.
just blown
Right.
my
Right.
mind.
Right. And so, so many white young children got their brain cells from black women.
From black women.
And they end up being pretty intelligent after. Now, I used to explain this
Wow.
at a WIC office. I used to go into a WIC office and ask to the
Wow.
women, how much does it cost to feed a child for a year? Oh, $5,000, $500. It's insurmountable. No, it's free. You have the It's called breastfeed.
Breastfeed. Exactly.
And so
It's
we
free.
and you can breastfeed them for years. And the longer you do it, the more
And
brain.
that formula is really expensive.
No. And it's similar, but it lacks.
It lacks. I love that.
It's similar. It says on the can what it does. It's right in front of us. And that's our problem. They tell us the truth and the lie right in front of us.
Y'all know what? I cannot.
And it's on the can. It's similar, but it lacks.
That's deep.
No, and let me show you when we realized it. That during the pandemic, one of the main plants that built Similac had a problem, and all the women was, how do I feed my baby? What about my baby? And that was all women was thinking like this.
I remember that.
They were scrambling. They trying to get Similac from China, trying to get Similac. No, lady, you are the nurturer and the first educator of the baby. Okay. I don't know when we forgot that.
We definitely forgot it.
And we forgot that. And no news media says, well, okay, for those who have recently gave birth to babies, put the tit in the mouth. Okay. You just do that. That'll solve that. And for those who, okay. Now, that's what they didn't explain to nobody. Which means we could have got back to the basics.
Yes.
Because and sometimes you have to take advantage of a tragedy to get back to the basics. But they didn't still educate mothers and females and children because they don't have no respect for them.
Wow.
If you don't respect women and children, you ain't gonna give them the correct.
You're not gonna give them what they
help
need.
Them bond
Exactly.
And build brain cells. You ain't gonna do that.
Wow, that's so deep. And I mean, you have to really just sit down, and when you think about the totality of it all, it's mind blowing. But that's big.
That's big. And when you're dealing with infant mortality, because see, that was the other big lie. There was a article out from Harvard University about 7 years ago that explained that infant mortality is going up in the African American community, but it has nothing to do with what we've been told is infant mortality. It had nothing to do with the child being smothered in the bed because the mama. It had nothing to do with breath. No, it had to do with doctors who was incompetent on purpose, giving
when the kids were delivered,
delivering black women's babies. More women died on an operating table giving birth in a hospital.
Wow.
Than people who died in the streets. But that went unreported. That's still going on.
And actually, that number is now increasing.
And that's increasing.
It is now increasing. And I don't know if people are paying attention to that.
And so the recommendation from Harvard was black women do not get a white doctor. Because we tried to train them. We tried to get them to culture sensitivity. We tried to deal with. They are beyond learning that. And the way they was able to cipher the difference, because the same doctor who helped give birth to black babies gave birth to white babies, and white women had zero infant mortality. The black patients had off the chain because they didn't thoroughly examine the baby. They let them go home without all of the stuff in place, and that's the mortality.
Wow.
They never sent a healthy child out the door.
Yeah.
They didn't deal with the actual health of the mother.
But even when we take our kids into the hospital now, and not just our kids, and especially today, I worry about our people going into the hospital to get health care. I remember I have a cousin who is a emergency room nurse, and I remember getting my driver's license renewed. And I was excited because I was an organ donor and it was on my driver's license. And she said, go and get a new license
Right.
and take that off of there.
Right.
And I'm like, why? I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to donate my organ. She said, let me tell you something. Whether or not you're an organ donor will determine in some cases whether you live or die.
That's correct.
If you go into the emergency room with a life-threatening injury,
Correct.
they will play God with your life. Take it off of your ID. If you want to donate your organs, let your family know
Hmm.
so that at the time of death, they are able to make that call, but take it off of your identification, people. And I know that there has been many campaigns to get people, especially Black people, to do this. Just let a family member know or several family members, but take it off your ID.
Well, they say the third leading cause of death is actually going to the hospital. No, seriously, statistically.
Wow.
No, the first is car crashes. The second is murder. The third is going to hospitals. You can literally walk in and not walk out.
Wow.
Okay, that's been on record. And they also saw that even during the pandemic, that people walked in, uh, but they didn't walk out. They got sicker because they got there. They
Mm-hmm.
wasn't as sick. And they also just found out recent that a lot of the the deaths was the result of putting them on respirators. They realized that the respirator was not helping.
Mm-hmm.
It caused more problems than it solved, no matter how many. And when as soon as you got on the respirator, your health immediately got
Because it
worse.
causes you to choke. See, one thing about being on a respirator, and anything that's going to stunt your breathing,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, you have to really be trained. And I don't know how many doctors and nurses or staff members really took the
Right,
time
right,
to explain to the residents who were in their care
right.
how to properly breathe through those
You have to
breathing
be a
machines.
respiratory therapist to
You have
understand
to
that. You
you
know
have
the
to
science of that. You
yes.
can't just tie somebody to it.
Exactly. And so yes, and you are so correct about that. But like I said, there are so many extenuating factors. And so but yeah, yeah, but yes, just talk more about those kinds of things.
Mhm.
And again, parents, let your kids hear this. Let them be in the room. Because see, here's the thing. We're going to be gone. Grandmothers are going to go, and our young people are going to be here, and they need to know these things because I promise you 10 years down the road, people are going to be wondering what happened, and there are going to be conversations, and your young people will be able to speak to these things because it's going to come back up.
Yeah, and and I'm glad you're into education because I still work in schools as well as jails, but I work in schools still because and you see early on if you look at people development stages who have been bonding with their parents
Hmm.
and who really have brain development. Is you can see it. You can see it. Um, it's a parent. It's a parent.
Yeah,
You can see if the child has a
very,
parent
very evident.
or don't have a certain. It's a parent.
You can actually tell kids who have been breastfeeding.
You can see it if you
You
have
can
it,
you can see
if
it.
you
It's
have a trained
evident.
eye about it. You can see it.
They're different.
Mhm. They are.
They are different. They are calmer.
Mhm.
Their demeanors, their
Mhm.
personalities
Mhm.
are different.
Mhm.
You can actually tell.
Yeah. So right. So and that's like I said, and those are the development steps that we as people uh have failed to understand because we follow trends, follow people else, somebody else going to educate your child, somebody else going to do something for your child, versus us know how to do it ourselves. And we don't know how to do it. We don't even know how to talk to our children. We
Mm.
leave that up to somebody else. We don't even know how to pray with our children. We leave that up to somebody else. We don't even know how to motivate them to be an entrepreneur. We leave that up to somebody else. We don't show them how to have good health. We leave that up to somebody else. We don't show them how to read. We leave that up to somebody else. It's like, no, you can't leave that up to somebody else. Okay. And when they don't obtain it or achieve it or get it, you want to blame somebody else.
Oh.
But the fact is, it's for you to do. See, one of the things my mother taught me, and I didn't realize she taught it to me. And that's the thing about when you learn, you don't know when you learned it. You just know you
You
know it.
just know you know it.
You know it. And you're glad somebody taught it to you. You don't know when you got it, actually got it. But my mother taught me the principle of a village, what the village is. And because I was raised by a single mother. And so when she took me to church, because I went to Catholic school, but she knew we wasn't Catholic, but I had to go to mass and stuff. So she took me up to the church and told the people at the church, listen, this is my son. Uh, if he give you a hard time, you call me and let me know. And if he tell me you give him a hard time, I'm gonna call you and let you know. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's be clear. Okay, if he bothers you, call me because he ain't supposed to do that in church.
Mm-hmm.
But if you bother him, I'm calling you. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So then she went to the school park district where we play at. Okay, this is my son Phil. He gonna be coming to the park playing. If you see him doing anything wrong, you call me. Okay, here's my phone number. And if he tell me something went wrong, I'm calling you. She took me to the neighborhood business where she sent me to go hit her cigarettes and stuff. She went to the storekeeper, said, this is my son. He gonna be coming here buying stuff. If you see him here stealing or doing a line, you call me. And I'm gonna call you
If I
if
think so.
if he say you did something out of order to him. She went to the nearest clinic. If my son come in with a broke leg, you call me. Okay. Because I know he lie and hide what he do. And so the neighbor, she went to the neighbors. If you see my son doing something, you call me. She went to the school. You call me. Now the thing was, all those people actually did call.
Well, they did that back then.
No.
Yes.
This ain't even back then. You have to put this in place
You
right
gotta put
now.
it. Yep.
It ain't back then. It's a principle you have to apply all the
All the
time.
time. Yeah,
We don't give people permission to be part of our village.
that's true.
The village is there.
The village is there.
The village ain't going nowhere.
We don't utilize the
We don't
village.
utilize the village.
Yeah.
We don't give the people to authority to be part of your process. And so what was deep, a lady finally came to knocked on the door. I saw, Miss Bradley, I need to tell about your son. And my mother just listening. And he was over at the lake smoking with some boys. And she just listening. And I knew the lady was lying. And my mother took the report, closed the door. I said, Mama, that lady lying. She said, I know she's this time, but one day she's gonna be right. I know you wasn't. You don't do that, but I'm not gonna tell her. Don't you talk wrong? No, she's gonna be right one day.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I know who she's dealing with. Now you don't smoke, but you do lie. You do steal.
I know my kid.
I know my kid. So, but she gonna get the report right one day. So you just keep it coming. We don't agree to do that.
Yeah.
We don't agree to to build a village and let them. And and the village ain't perfect, but it helps protect you.
That is so true. And I have to, revert back to the classroom. And I thought about a conversation I had with a parent some months ago. And she had a 10-year-old, a fifth grader, who could not read at all. And she came and she was saying, you seem like a nice sub. I'm so glad somebody else is in here because that teacher they got ain't worth for nothing. My son can't read a lick. And he in fifth grade and he can't read. I said, ma'am, can I be really honest with you? What you got to say? I said, can I be honest with you? Go ahead. Let me just. I said, ma'am, this is January. That teacher has been your son's teacher for a couple of months. He been your child for 10 years. You let him leave your house every day for 10 years and he can't read a lick.
Right.
What are you doing? You're his first teacher.
Right.
But the first thing you did was condemn the person that only had been on the job with him for a couple of months. He been your child for 10 years.
You know what's so funny? You brought, my mother, and I love my mother. She did a good job in spite of her deficiencies. Like most parents, we
exactly. Yeah, we have deficiencies.
We got our deficiencies.
Yes.
But I had went to several schools early on. I lived in 18 places my first 18 years of life. And I didn't realize it until I was doing a self-evaluation of my life, because I was teaching people how to evaluate their lives, and I had to
To
evaluate
yourself,
do
yeah.
myself. So as I'm evaluating my own life,
Y'all hear that, people? Self-evaluation is necessary.
right. So as I'm evaluating my life and have all these different memories, I wrote down 15 places that I lived. So I went to my mother. I said, "Ma, are you aware that we lived in 15 places in my first 18 years of life?" "Oh boy, ain't nobody living that many places. Oh boy, man, even kids in DCFS ain't living that many places." I said, "Mom, okay, maybe not. But can you look at my list?" So she going through the list. She added 3 places.
Oh, wow.
That I couldn't remember. I was too young to remember. Now, my mother didn't know that she was running a DCFS operation based on her own words. She could not
Wow.
see herself. She's thinking she's just trying to find me one good place to live, and it took her 18 tries.
Wow.
So, but so as I'm going in between schools, I was leaving public school to go to, I was leaving public school to go to Catholic school, and they had tested me at the school, and I was far behind because I went to so many schools prior to going to Catholic school. And the teacher, this nun, this young white nun, gave me tons of work, and I was new to the school too. So my mother was complaining. She never acknowledged she was a nun. This white girl gonna give up. I got to help you with all this work. So she marched me up to the school to ask this white girl who give me all this work. And she says, "What? He's too little. He's too this. How you gonna do all this work?" And the nun asked, like you did with the woman. The nun looked at my mother and asked, "Let me ask you something. What do you want your child to be?" And for the first time, my mama didn't have nothing to say. Now, as much time she got a good comeback for everything, but she ain't got no comeback for this. I've never seen her this quiet.
Never seen her silent.
I ain't never seen her this quiet.
Wow.
Thinking about what she want me to be. Oh, you ain't got nothing to say to this. So the nun helped out. I said, "I have to tell you what, if he just did a quarter of the work that I'm giving him, he'd be the smartest person in this class. If he did half the work, he'd be the smartest person in the building. If he did all the work, he'd be the smartest person in the world. So you need to ask yourself a question. What you want your child to be? The smartest person in his class, the smartest person in the building, or the smartest person in the world?" "Oh, I want my son to be the smartest person in the world." "Oh, ma'am, have him do all his work.
Stop complaining.
Stop complaining." And sure enough, she never complained about that no more. But it takes an educator to help educate
To help
parents,
educate, yes.
because they the other educator. It takes
That's
an educator to help an educator understand education. And so she never got on me about how much work they're giving me. I could even complain about that myself.
It went down after that.
It went down after that. But I didn't learn how to read. Go back to the reading issue. I didn't learn how to read until I was 12. Now, mind you, my mother sent me to Catholic school, and they supposed to put you in some reading program. And it was so funny because it was always a small class of 30 that you saw for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And all my best friends was 8 students and read well, but I couldn't. But the reading program was when it's time to read, all of the slow readers have to leave the room from the real readers.
I remember that.
So I had to go out with the guys who was slow and the kid, and they put you in this room with a headphone set.
I have to go out with them.
Right, I had to go out.
But I remember them, though.
Right, I had to go out and be in a booth, looking at signs. For the time the other people in the reading room is reading, and I found out later, the way you learn how to read by being around readers and people you hear reading, and you learn to read about people. So their method here was take you out of the room with readers and put you in a booth, and it didn't help.
No,
it didn't help, and this was the Catholic way. It didn't help. My mother ended up getting married to a guy who went from the mail room to the board room, so he knew the value of reading. And so one day I became a functionally literate by 10. So I could see stuff, but not read it, but understood it. I knew how to function without reading it. And so I used to read comic books and stuff, and I would find them, be laughing and stuff. So my stepfather said, "Well, read it to me." And I couldn't read it. And he said, "Jackie, you know this boy can't read." Now, mind you, I'm in the house, right? He said, "Jackie, are you aware this boy can't read? We paying tuition. The boy can't read." And he said to me, and the first time I ever heard, he said, "I am not going to be in the house with an ignorant Negro." He said this to me to my face. he said, he said, "You are going to go to the library and you're going to go get 5 books a week and you're going to read 5 books a week and you're going to tell me what's in the book." And as he's telling me this, I'm like, "Didn't you just say I don't know how to read?" How you gonna give me a reading assignment?
5 books.
5 books weekly, and I don't know how to read. But he was too big. He looked like Richard Roundtree, so he wasn't nobody to be arguing with.
Which side? I wasn't
I,
finna
I
play.
wasn't about to. I wasn't about to. I had to take him at face value. I didn't want to figure out what could go wrong with this, because it could go really wrong.
Say no mess around and find out
No
here.
mess around, find out here. So, mind, to show you how God is good all the time. We was living on 30th in Indiana, in the library was on 35th and King Drive. Now, mind you, my stepfather never ever, or my mama ever took me to the library, never. And I went over for 2 years, rain or shine, every Saturday. But my first Saturday, I had to go to the library, and it was the Martin Luther King Library on 35th and King Drive, right on, and it's still
Right on,
there.
right. Mm-hmm.
It's still there, a little bitty library.
You know, I grew up in that
A
neighborhood,
little
so
bit, a
yes,
little
I
bit,
know.
because I was
I
raised,
know. Yep,
I was
I know
raised in
them.
South Commons, and I had to walk there every
Okay.
Saturday. I had to walk from 30th to 35th, rain or shine. But the first day I got to the library, I went there and I told the librarian, I said, "I got a problem." She said, "What's your problem?" I said, "I got a mean stepfather at home." I did. I told and he told me I got to get 5 books, but I don't know how to read and I don't know where to start. So the lady literally took me to the kindergarten section of the library and handed me 5 books, these little silver books with a picture of a duck with the word duck, picture of a dog with the word dog. She said, "Son, this is where you start." I said, "Lady, he gonna think I'm playing. I can't take these books home. He gonna think I ain't taking them serious." She said, "No, this is where you have to start.
Yep. At the beginning, the
This is where
basics.
you have to start." And sure enough, when he got the 5 books, brought them home, handed it to him, and he looked at it, handed them back to me, and I'm like, maybe he don't know how to read. Because I don't see this as a damn book. Maybe he misses something. Okay. So he accepted it. So sure enough, every Saturday, so I went from the kindergarten books to the first grade books to the second grade books to the third grade books and read through them. And sure enough, and I got my reading up because it takes practice.
Yes.
And you have to start where you are.
You got to start where you
You
are
have to start where you
and
are
work your way
and
up.
just work your way up and then practice and read daily and practice it. And whatever you do the most, you're going to get good at.
Yes.
And sure enough, and after a year and a half of going to the library every Saturday, reading 5 books a week, building my vocabulary, building the practice, got 3 years ahead.
Wow.
And so me working with dealing with Martin Luther King and nonviolence, he the one that taught me how to read.
Wow.
I was on King Drive, and Martin Luther King taught me how to read, man. Okay,
Parents, are y'all listening to that? Are you listening?
thank God for
And
Martin Luther
it's
King.
as simple as starting at the basics. And even in terms of how to revive our communities, how to revive our households, how to revive our families. It's real simple, people. It really starts with the basics. It's okay to start over, to start from scratch, to go to the beginning, figure out where we went wrong, what we need to fix. And see, Mr. Bradley gave us nuggets today because when he talked about the importance of the diet, hear me, people, we get a little lazy. We can't imagine ourselves taking the time to nurture, protect, raise, and love our children the way we want to or need to because we are living our best life. But let me tell you all something. All of the years of neglect that have been carried down from generation to generation has so much to do with where we are right now. So, if we want to make a change, to be the catalyst for change, it starts at the beginning, very basic, with the dog cat words. And I don't necessarily mean about what we're reading as much as I am talking about what we're doing, what we're putting out, what we're teaching our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, our neighbors, our friends. Because people, it takes a village. It takes a village. You know, there was never a point in the history of our people where a mother was all a kid had,
Right.
or a father was all a kid had. Our children had communities
Yeah.
of parents, communities of aunts and uncles and cousins. The village has fallen, and we have neglected to go back and to pick it up with something as simple as breastfeeding our children.
Yeah.
It's real simple. You want their minds to develop. You want them to develop. You want them to be healthy. What you say about that milk again, Mr. Phillip?
It's similar, but it lacks.
Listen.
It's on the bottle. It says similar, but it lacks.
Listen, and I didn't even want to attempt to repeat that because that was such a major piece of information that I think we really needed. Not just here in the city of Chicago, but nationwide to everyone that is listening to Intellectual Radio tonight. This is the front line. Hey, listen, call in. Our number is 708-223-8953. Chicago, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think. We want to know what you think about what parents ought to be doing right now with their kids. We want to know what you think about how we have evolved and changed and we should be doing better, but we're not as a people. What is your thoughts? What are your thoughts about these particular situations? Again, this is Intellectual Radio. Mr. Phillip Bradley is his spitting game. Come on, y'all, call in and talk to us. 708-223-8953. Come on, let's talk about it, people.
Now, and I really appreciate you. See, one of the things that happens, we don't know our family history.
True.
And instead of us knowing our family history, we gossip about our family, but we don't know our family history. Um, Instead of us knowing laws like the law of attraction and the law of cause and effect, the law of giving and receiving, the law of forgiveness, the law of truth, the law. What's the law of these things? We have hearsay about what love is, what truth is, what justice is. Just hearsay. We don't know the law of it. And not knowing the science, we have rumors. We spread rumors about what I'm gonna be without no scientific tools to get you there. So instead of us living a life of history, law, and science, we in the world of gossip, hearsay, and rumor. Well, gossip, hearsay, and rumor can't build a business. Or gossip, hearsay, and rumor can't build a family. Gossip, hearsay, and rumor can't advance yourself. If anything, it put you at disadvantage. But if you're not discussing history, law, and science, you're not even having an intelligent conversation.
Wow. Wow.
You're not even having an intelligent conversation with a person
Yeah,
without
because
talking
we're
about
not talking about anything that matters.
because this
Nothing that's pertinent to our growth. Mm.
and many of us are trapped out of history because we talk ourselves out of it. We are trapped outside of law and how we can win using it because we have hearsay about it, and we are trapped outside of science, which is the future. So your history is your past. We have no comprehension of our past, and all that our past is the last three generations. Who was your mother and father? Who was their mother and father? And who was their mother and father? Because that is who you should be conscious of, and that is your history. Because all of them probably didn't come out of slavery. They probably came out of wealth. That is your history.
Mm. Wow.
Maybe they were scientists. That maybe they was part that, but that is your history. Your history is not 500 years ago. It's the last three generations going to tell you where you're going in the future.
Wow.
Because of them, your children's children either going to be blessed or your children's children going to be cursed because of this.
Wow.
This is already in print.
It's already there.
It's already there. But say I know my mama, but I don't know my daddy. And if I don't know my daddy, I don't even know my daddy.
That's right.
And if my mama didn't like her mama, so she don't really know her mama, and I don't even know who my great grand. But the thing is, when we were born, there was a great grandparent here, there was a grandparent here, and there was a parent here, and you became the grandchild. Now, you being the grandchild, you actually have more in common with the grandparent than you do the parent, because the grandparent made the parent.
Right.
That's why grandparents and grandchildren have such a connection. See, I've seen it with my own children. With my mother wanted a girl. When I have 8 aunts and 4 uncles. The boys are the youngest, and so we had a line of girls. So now all these boys start coming. So my mama wanted a girl so bad, she told everybody she's gonna want a boy. Wanted a girl. Had a baby shower. They bought pink. Everybody bought pink. When I was born as a boy, my mother was so hurt. Oh, she was so hurt. Oh, but she still put that pink on me, though. I was well pink for about 3 years. So when my daughter's born, which is her first granddaughter, she just took to it like fish to water. Oh, she finally got the daughter she always wanted. Threw me to the side again. But it was just a good connection.
Yeah.
But but we have to understand our family history. Now, law is how you respect law. Because if you don't know law, you're gonna be a lawbreaker. If you don't know the law of giving and receiving, you're gonna break that law. And if you don't know the law of cause and effect, you're gonna break that law. You don't know the law of truth, you're gonna break that law. You don't know the law of love, you're gonna break that law. So you're gonna end up being a lawbreaker because you just don't know how to apply law.
Right.
It's like, do you know how to drive down the street without breaking the law? You just have to apply the law.
Right.
So you don't end up outside
of the law.
That's just science. But then the other part of science is how do you get into the future? So if you break a law right now in the present, your present stops. Break a law and see what happens.
No, thank you.
But if you're gonna have a future, apply a science and watch wait.
Wow. That was a whole word. Wow.
Apply a science and you have a chance to have a future. But without a science, I don't care if it's carpentry, it's a science of that. Geometry, it's a science of that.
Yeah.
Without these sciences, and you get it down to a science, your work ethic, get it down to a science and watch where your future goes. See, get your attitude down to a science. Watch but you can't just have a rumor, I'm going to be successful when you have to get it down to a science.
Right.
To be successful.
Got to cultivate it.
You got to cultivate it.
You got to put some stuff in.
Yeah, but we stuck in gossip, history, and rumor and not history, law, and science.
Wow. History, law, science. Y'all hear that, people? History, law, science. Just think about how all of those things are interconnected.
One drives the other.
One drives the other. If you think about laws come because of history, history affects the law, and the science is the outcome of it all.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And it always helps when you have a good family understanding, no matter what that is. Let me give a classic. Angela Davis, beautiful sister, dynamic warrior, was for African American people to the end, still is. and she was on Know Your Roots, and she had to discover, not through her family, but through a guy who did DNA, that she's actually the descendant of the guy who was the pilgrim who had the first dinner with the Indians. Now check this out. Now just picture this. Here's a woman who's been fighting for black rights, fighting that white people are wrong, and she is actually the great great granddaughter of the first pilgrim. Now, I'm sure if she had that information, she would have been even more powerful as an advocate.
Why, yeah. Yeah, because she'd have been able to tie her
Right, she could tie
lineage.
her lineage,
Yes.
but because she didn't even know her own history,
Wow.
she was fighting correctly and still. But guess how powerful she would have been
Mm.
if she could have said to the black man, my great great grandfather was the pilgrim, and I'm still on your side.
Wow.
Versus because of the pilgrims. No, man, because of the pilgrims, lady. Okay, your grandfather was the pilgrim. So now you have to take a dual responsibility for this.
Yeah.
It ain't a one-sided responsibility. In all things we are doing, it's a dual responsibility. It's no one-sided responsibility.
Yeah.
See, in my family, I am on my father's side, I'm the darkest one on my father's side. Everybody else is light skinned, lighter than me, green eyes, long hair. On my mother's side, I'm the darkest. I'm the lightest one. No, I'm the lightest one on my mother's side. I'm the darkest one on my father's side.
Wow.
So there's definitely some white folks in my family somewhere. Okay,
Mhm.
so it's this duality thing.
Wow.
That you have to take responsibility for both.
Yeah, and I always, talk about the importance of history. And even when I go into schools now, especially when I'm dealing with high schoolers and the seventh and eighth graders, and I, really, really talk to them about how I could remember being in middle school and absolutely hating history. I absolutely detested history. And it wasn't, I got a better appreciation for it once I went to high school, but it wasn't until I went to college and sitting in history and really learning about the importance of history. It was at that point, I'll never forget sitting in a colonial studies class and really almost literally crying because of the time I wasted,
Mm-hmm.
because there was so much
Mm-hmm.
to the history of our people. And I always think about his story, not history, but his story, our story. We need to know
Mm-hmm.
our story. Um, and I believe when I hear the elders say, those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. And we're seeing the edifice of that now. Because although we're not in chains and in fields picking cotton, the enslavement of the Black mind
Yeah.
is self evident
Yeah. Yeah.
in a way that it's never been before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, part of it too is, and it go back to when we was playing with our mind and miss science when it's being taught, and then we learn history through comedians.
Mm-hmm.
We learn history through commentary, uh, true or false. And let me give you a classic. If I ask you how many years have slavery been going on in America, what would you say?
How many years have America been America?
Okay, I appreciate that. That's a better ballpark than most people say.
And I say that because there's always some form of enslavement going on.
That's true. No, but what has been the common thread that we've always heard?
600 years.
600 years, 400 years, pretty much 400 years.
Yeah. Well, everybody say 400, but it's really 6.
But
But yeah.
no, okay.
give
But
or take.
no, well, that's the narrative. Now, within the construct of America, America's only 250 years old.
Mhm.
So a nation that's only 250 years old cannot have 400 years of slavery. It wasn't even around.
Right. Well,
It was called North America, not as a governed nation of a body of
right.
laws that sanctioned anything.
Right.
The 13 colonies was not America.
No, it was
That
not.
was not America.
It
The
was not
Pilgrim, that was not
America.
America.
No,
That was not America.
it was not.
The West back then, that was not America.
Mm-mm.
Okay. And that's what we have to understand when things became a corporation. That was until 1787. And slavery ended in 1865. Slavery only went on in America as a law and a practice for 78 years.
Wow.
And it only happened in 11 states. Now, the reason why we haven't been able to get reparations because we keep trying to make it bigger than that. Man, slavery was going on for 400 years and all of America participated. Nah, you can't. They won't even hear it in court because it's not true. See, you don't have to make up nothing about slavery. Slavery really did exist. I don't care if it was for 1 day, for 100 days, or for 100 years. It was bad enough. You don't have to overdo it or underdo it.
Right.
But you can't blame everybody if they didn't participate. But if we haven't won the case because the majority of the lawyers would go into the court and give this false premise for 400 years of slavery in 50 states, and the judge immediately throw out. It's no different that if you had a traffic ticket, and if the cop don't put the right time on the ticket,
That's right.
the right day, the right signature, and the right violation, you could be wrong, but they're gonna throw this out just due to the technicality. Well, the Supreme Court is banking on the same thing. They want you to give the wrong amount of dates. They want you to charge the wrong states. They don't have to listen to the case.
Wow.
But if you only
But if you're given the facts,
for 78 years,
given the right information,
in 11 states, they know how to do the math on that.
wow.
They don't know how to calculate 400 years, and they only been here for 250. They don't know how to calculate 50 states when at that time it was only 32.
Wow.
So we'll go back to gossip. Who told you this?
Yeah.
Who told you it's 400 years?
That is what we've heard for many, many, many years.
That's gossip, hearsay, and rumor.
Right.
You can't get reparations with gossip, hearsay, and rumor. You have to know the history of this problem, the laws that govern the problem, and the signs of correction.
Wow.
If not, you can't even hit the light of day.
Wow. And we have so many people right now talking about reparations and what that's going to look like and whether or not we're going to get that and the number of people that are listening. But let me just say,
because the advocates would say for 400 years,
for 400
and that's what keeps throwing a wrench in it. You would.
And I just have to ask the question, and I know of several people who are advocating for reparations, and I think that is definitely something that should happen. I just don't really quite know what that should look like yet, but I do know that and feel like there should be reparations.
Sure.
But one of the things that I want to talk about, so the people who are components of reparations, are you talking about the history? I mean,
Right.
and do you have the right facts when it comes to the date? Are we talking about how the colonists lined up and how it started with Britain and worked its way into America because they brought it with them? You know, do we know the history of how this happened?
Right.
And I would even go as far as to say, does it lay at the feet of America first?
No, it doesn't actually. Actually, they was last to catch on. See, it started with the Arabs. See, we have to understand this has a history.
Mm-hmm.
The first time you heard about slavery was with Moses talking to Pharaoh. Okay, this is slavery is not a white man's concept.
Yeah,
he's the last to catch on and the first to abolish it. The Spaniards did it. The Portuguese did it. See, the Arabs did it. The Africans did it. And the person who really caught on to that better than most people was Malcolm X, because he realized that our struggle here in America has a history long before we got here, and that's why he had to look at our plight as a humanitarian plight. He had to take it to the UN because he had to hold a lot of people accountable for us getting in this condition. The white guy was the last, because even in the English didn't have slaves. Everybody was a slave to the king. Everybody was slaves. They was called indentured servants.
Yep.
And one of the reasons why they had to use skin color as a determinating of who could be the slave, because they used to have white slaves, but whites could run away and hide amongst other whites.
Yep.
Being black, you can't hide among
Can't.
you. They will find you in the dark.
Find you and lynch
See,
you.
and so that's what so that's one of the reasons of delegating based on skin color. You can easily identify them as that class of people that it's hard for them to escape and hide amongst the masses, unlike Irish or Italians when they was in the same condition.
Wow.
Because many ethnic groups would change their last name to fit in. They would stop being O'Reilly to be something else if it wasn't popular, and was able to navigate that. Blacks, you cannot undo being.
Right.
I can't not be black. Okay,
Right.
no matter what my name.
Because
is.
our name was whoever plantation we was on, and
Right.
if you left that plantation, your name changed.
Your name exactly. So
Yeah.
so that was part of that. But we have to be mindful that we have to really start taking history serious, because we talk about even Donald Trump, good or bad, up and down. He's the 47th president, but I don't know if you say name the president out of the 47 that actually worked in the advancement of African American people. So it ain't like, man, he ain't the one. Name the one. Name one. Name one.
I don't have one.
That
But go ahead.
African American people was only things to do. The only one we had was Abe Lincoln, and they blew his brains out.
Listen,
for even bringing it up.
But I think that people, but even with Abraham Lincoln, he did it under duress. He didn't want to do that.
Well, amen. No, I appreciate him doing it under duress.
But
Obama came and went. He wouldn't do nothing under duress. Okay.
Well, he can't help us, y'all.
But here we go. We will hold. Why won't a white guy free? We have to do it ourselves. And we won't hold ourselves
accountable.
It's like,
self-preservation is everything.
Be Abe Lincoln, Obama. Okay, for real. Okay, not just for all of us. You could probably free all of us now. He freed one section. You could probably
free the next section.
Right. But he don't. We don't understand that. Because we gossip about history, we gossip about law, we gossip about science, and when you wake up, you're gonna be outside of all of it. Okay, because that don't get you on the end, and that's what we've been up against. Our educational system doesn't teach history, law, and science. Since they don't know how to comprehend and pay attention, let's just play with them and keep them busy.
And that's really what they do. A lot of what is happening,
they're not teaching
even in education, it's keep them busy, keep them quiet. Mm-hmm. If they learn something along the way, that's great. But we're going to teach them how to take this test and make it look good. And that's where it begins and ends. Yeah. Which is why it was so important to me to say to parents and to bring up that situation about that 10-year-old or that 5th grader who could not read, and to say to the parents, they with you first. You're the first teacher. The first learning experience comes from you. You determine their success or their failure. You determine it. And it's based on the seeds that you plant when those kids first get here. It depends on whether or not you have the wherewithal to do what it takes to really mother that child, to nurture that child, to breastfeed that child, to spend that time bonding and drawing in on a positive relationship with that child. See, now you have today where in a lot of cases you can't tell if you in a room with a group of people and mothers and fathers and children are together. If it weren't for the age difference, you wouldn't know who was who.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And that's not okay.
But it's funny you say that, because I was the 4th generation unknown. I was the 4th generation knowingly of having a child at 18. I had my first child at 18. My parents had a child at 18. My grandmother had a child at 18, and my great grandmother had a child at 18. Now, but when I had my child at 18 and I was explaining to my mother, she started crying. I said, "What you crying about?" She said, "I didn't want to be no grandmama about 36." I said, "Why did you ever tell me this?"
She had options.
Yeah, no, no, no. I didn't know we could break the cycle.
Oh, okay.
No, no. This. I said, "Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You didn't. You did it to your mama. Your mama did it to her mama. My daddy did it to his daddy. My grandfather did it, and I did it. I didn't realize how out of order it was. So when my daughter came along, I said, okay, I need to break the cycle. And my daughter became the first college graduate out of our family in 4 years. And she was the first one to who didn't have a child at 18.
Broke the cycle.
But if my mother explained to me at 16, hey son, now listen, I don't want you to do what I did and what your daddy did, it was just taken for granted. And I did exactly what they did. Not even knowing.
Not so.
Not
Right.
even I didn't realize how on
Not
autopilot
knowing the ramifications
I
of
had no
what
idea
was.
until she started crying, talking about I didn't want to be a mama at 36. And I didn't realize how old she was. Because she's always mama. I ain't never considered
Right.
age. I ain't be 18 to 36. I didn't even do the math until she started
Wow.
to explain this to me. And so I didn't become a father, a grandfather until I was in my 40s.
Wow.
Like,
Which is
what
what you're supposed to, right?
right. But my grandmother had one at 18. His mama had one. And that's in my own family history.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to knowing. But it's the same thing with substance abuse. Do you come from a line of 3 generations of alcoholics or good drinkers?
What's the difference?
Well, the gossip is we just good drinkers. No, those are three.
Because ain't no difference,
No,
right?
I'm saying no. We
It's
play
functioning and
no, we
non-functioning.
play like we just real. No, we just good
Right.
drinkers. No, those are 3 generation alcoholics. Now, do you want a 4th-generation alcoholic?
Right.
See, but if you gossip about your history, we just good drinkers. If you tell the truth about your history, we had 3 generation alcoholics.
Let's break the
So
cycle.
then we could break the cycle for the future. Do you want alcoholics in the future? But if you don't acknowledge your past will show up in the future. Wow. Your past will repeat
I
itself.
need you to say that again.
Your past will repeat
If you don't acknowledge
your past, it will show up in the future.
It will show up in the future.
And don't gossip about it. Know the history of it.
Yes. That's big.
Yep.
When I tell you, you done dropped some nuggets, let me tell you something. Mr. Phillip, I have just been so inspired by you. And like I said, I left here last week and I was like, I'm really going to have to do things differently. I'm going to be intentional, as I said,
Very good word.
about finding a way to talk about the issues and the lack of leadership and transparency of our elected officials without condemning and demonizing them.
Right.
Because I think that we have to do that as a Black people. It makes a difference, and it matters. It matters what kind of message we're sending. It also matters in terms of what do we want to see on the other side of all this?
Right.
What do we want to see? Do we want to see people rectify situations? Do we want to see people do better?
Right.
Do we want to see people make an about face? Do we want people to really admit, hey, I might have made a mistake or had some missteps. How can I pivot? How can I change? How can I redirect? We want to be able to start having those kinds of conversations. Now, we know that in some cases, redirection isn't possible, Brandon Johnson. It just ain't happening for you. But in some cases, it can happen. And you know what? Let me stop saying it can't happen for Brandon. It just ain't gonna happen in this election cycle. He might go and spend some time and have a come to Jesus moment and wake up and realize that he's done some things wrong. Or he may not. He may be Rahm Emanuel and think that, yeah, I messed some stuff up and I screwed some people over. And there was a child that was shot in the street so many times and I covered it up. But now I want to be president.
Yeah, but and we gotta wake up from this standpoint. What would be alarming is in light of how we feel about all what we saw and he did, and the man gets back in. You said, "Wait a minute, what were we? That's what were we thinking? How he do all that
And get back
and
in.
get back in?" Now, well, we stay in this condition called being duped.
Mm-hmm.
See, presently, I live in a ward uh, that the alderman won with 4,800 votes, but it's 50,000 people that live in the. Okay, now here's a man won with 4,800. Now, every time I walk through my ward, I can actually talk to everybody, and they all disagree with him. There's 40,000 people that don't like the man, but he still won with 4,800 votes. And you say, okay, now that's what they know. They know no matter what you say, no matter how much you disagree, no matter how much you hate me, no matter how much I don't serve you, no matter how much I don't even do what you think I'm supposed to do, I'm going to be back with 4,800 votes and 36,000 of y'all are going to feel duped when y'all could have actually voted me out of office.
And the thing is
No, sir, this is the deep part. You could have voted him out.
could have voted him out. 50,000. That's interesting. 50,000.
And it's all over the place. Now, let's go back to the presidential. Between his 78 million and his other 77 million, that's 150 million. But there's 330 million people in America. Half the people didn't even vote. See, we keep pretending that somebody got 51% of the vote, and 51% of people didn't even vote.
That play on numbers. And you talked a lot about that.
It go back to genocide.
Yep.
They playing with numbers.
The play on numbers.
This man won with 7% of the vote, and 63% of the people didn't vote. But yet there was other candidates running against him, and they act like he got 78% of the vote. No, he got 78% of 8,000 votes.
Of the bare minimum.
Of the bare minimum.
He got 8% of the bare minimum.
And now he's the commander-in-chief, lead in charge of your community, sight unseen, don't have to answer to you because he know one, you probably didn't even vote for him. Two, you didn't even vote against him. Three, you didn't vote at all. Wow. And so he don't owe you nothing.
And that's how they treat us.
That's how they do.
And
that's in every ward. That's just mine.
Are we hearing this, people?
If you went to the fifth ward, there's only 7% of the people, and these are the people who go to work every day. If you went to the west side, only 7%. Check out the totals.
Yeah.
The number of registered voters versus those who actually voted.
Yeah.
Shame on us.
Shame on us. And we're wondering why we're in the condition that we're in. You know, a lot of, my grandmother used to have this saying when I was younger, you made your bed, now lie in it.
Oh, yeah.
And learn how to be comfortable in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, we're lying in the bed that we made right now. That is what's happening. And it's happening because we didn't show up to vote and we didn't take things serious. And we don't know our story. We don't know a law. We don't know science. And so because of that, we find ourselves in this position that we're in, and we're trying to get out of it.
Right. Now I'm working in the jails, and one of the most interesting comments I would get from some of the inmates, I was, how things going, man? How your case going? Oh, man, I'm about to beat my case. Oh, great. Yeah, they're going to give me 15 years. I said, man, how you beating your case?
How you get ready to get 15 years?
I said, man, do this. Call your girlfriend and explain that to her. I just need to hear what she say. Say, I'm beating my case, baby. When you coming home? 15 years from now. I said, what makes you think you beat the case? Well, you didn't. You should have saw what they was trying to give me. Oh, that's son. You don't know law. Son.
No,
son. That was the maximum they could have gave you. Son. If they could go from 40 to 15, they could, son. You walked in, you got 50 years coming. Y'all, can y'all work something out? We give you 10. Yeah, I beat the case. Man, it ain't okay. If they had a case that merited 50 years.
You'd have got 50 years.
No, you may not have. No, they don't even go through the
So,
process.
I see what you're saying. They go ahead and just give
They
them.
plea bargain and do case law.
Wow.
Right. That's and they, well, if I lose, they promise me to give me the whole bit. Well, okay, well, you've been here 3 years already. What if they find you innocent?
You already gave them 3 years.
You already gave them 3 years. You got no bail release.
That is too funny because wow.
And so they put you in such a bind
that
and
you
and
thinking
you don't know the law.
Wow.
And what was so amazing, I was working with the brothers, and two of the public defenders, because most of the guys don't have lawyers, they got public defenders. And on two different occasions, a public defender would come to the class and says, "Who is Mr. Bradley?" They say, "You, Mr. Bradley, I wanted to meet you because my client, he sounds much smarter now than he was when I first met him. I just find out who he was talking to."
Okay.
No, seriously. Like,
well, I'm not surprised by that.
No. But he's like, man, he said I was in this class and he's gonna get a certificate. And he's like, he's helping me help him. Because most of my clients don't know how to help themselves for me to help them.
Wow.
He said, I just need to see who he's been talking to, because actually he's not got a better chance to help himself and me help him.
Wow.
Because one of the first things I asked the guys when I got there on day one, I said, who in here is glad to get arrested? Oh man, who dude, man? What dude come from, man? Why who talking this crazy, man? I said, okay, let's go over this again. Who was glad to get arrested? Man, oh man. Okay, who got a court case? Okay, who got to see a judge? Okay, now I said the word arrest says this: arrest. They gave you arrest. The question is, who is glad that they gave you arrest from robbing your mama, breaking into houses, stealing cars, and killing people? And while you taking this rest, before you go see the judge, tell the judge, thank you for arresting me. Because until I sat down to think about what I was doing, I didn't know what I was doing. Because that's true.
Yep, it is.
So he gave you a break. He broke you from this, had you go sit down. And so when you go in and testify, tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so God can help you. But as soon as they say that, you start lying. And now you're at the mercy of the court.
And you at the mercy of the court. And that's what I was sitting up there thinking about. No, so now you done got up there and lied.
The only thing that can help you right now is God. And they gave you this as an option. And as soon as they catch you lying, all bets are off, man.
And the kicker is, a lot of times what these young guys don't understand is they put you in the position to lie on purpose. They put you in a position to lie on purpose. Most of the questions they ask you, criminals, when you get to court, they know the answer to already. Right. They just want to see what you're going to say.
But and that's the thing, to go back to law. They had to pass the Constitution, this thing called the Miranda rights. Because you cannot go from being free to losing all freedom without having some preamble discussed. A man can't just pull up with a uniform on, put you in handcuffs, and your whole life change forever without him having no discussions.
Wow.
So before they arrest you, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney, but if you cannot afford one, do you understand these things? Now, most people don't realize at this point, you need to always just be quiet. Because they will use everything you say
against you. And most of the time, you standing up there trying to plead your case and explain.
And you cussing out the cop, and you're spitting on his shoes, and you're doing this. And as soon as you say, because innocent or guilty, you're gonna need a lawyer.
Yes.
Innocent or guilty, you're gonna need a lawyer, particularly if you're innocent.
That's right. Well, you know what, Chicago?
And don't say nothing. And your lawyer gonna say, "Well, please tell me you didn't say nothing to the police."
Y'all hear that?
Because if you say anything, you may ruin your chance. Yeah, I can help you if you gave away the case.
When they say speak now forever, hold your peace. Hold your peace.
Peace, right?
Please hold your peace. Guys, we are going to close. It has been a great night. And those of you who have listened in tonight, I hope that you were paying attention and that you took notes, because there were several things that were said here tonight that was noteworthy, things that we need to really be paying attention to, things we need to be mindful about. This is Intellectual Radio. I am your hostess tonight, Kata Trust, with our host, Mr. Phillip Bradley. And we want to thank Mr. Bradley for coming. He will be, listen, Chicago, America, Intellectual Radio. Mr. Bradley will be coming on with us regularly, spitting that game, giving us that message, telling us the things that we need to know, things we need to hear. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. Brother Tyrone, we are thinking about you. Listen, let me tell y'all something. Tyrone is out there doing the usual. He is out there handling the business down in Springfield, getting ready to advocate on behalf of us. And so we want to thank you, Tyrone, for all that you do. We want to thank our listeners and those of you who are going to be heading down to Springfield in the morning to stand up and to stand with the people who are going to be fighting on behalf of the people who can't fight for themselves. We thank you and we bid you good night. This is the Front Line with Tyrone Muhammad and Kata Trust. Peace.